then when you saw it, what was your reaction?
I was outraged. It was incomprehensible to me. It was that bad.
What are we going to see then?
You're going to see acts that defy humanity. You're going to see a disregard for life.
This video is brought to you by the Officer Tatum store. The Officer Tatum store, the code is merch in the game. I want y'all to know we got 50% off the clearance rack. What's in the clearance rack, Mr. Tatum? Fathers Matter. I don't know why we put it in the clearance rack, but we got it in the clearance rack. Fathers Matter, GGY6, Faith Not Fear. We got all of our cool designs. Look, I'm going to be honest with y'all. We trying to get some more stuff in here. We got a new screen printing company, so we want y'all to buy all this stuff. My book is available right now. Also, all of our new products. We have loved our they call it a Valentine's Day line, but man, this is really about God. Got a verse here, Romans 5:8. So get our new merch. All of it is here. We got our big crazy hats. I'm gonna wear one of these in the video so y'all can see what it looks like. We have things available for pre-order and all of our best sellers, even this shirt included right here. So make sure you go on discount code God First, get 20% off the entire store. God First, 20% off the entire store. Like and subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you get notifications anytime I go live, make a video. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, like this video, comment on this video, share this video. Let's get into this. I want to go over the charges that these officers are facing. And there are two major charges that I feel are going to be somewhat of an obstruction to this investigation. And it only take one juror to have a reasonable doubt about the legitimacy of these charges, and they're going to get thrown out. And I think that, in my personal opinion, they have politicized this whole thing. They've politicized it. You know, I don't understand why in our country, in the climate that we're in, that people feel like they need to politicize an event that's cut and dry.
This is not just a professional failing. This is a failing of basic humanity toward another individual. This incident was heinous, reckless, and inhumane. And in the vein of transparency, when the video is released in the coming days, you will see this for yourselves. I expect you to feel what the Nichols family feels. I expect you to feel outrage in the disregard of basic human rights, as our police officers have taken an oath to do the opposite of what transpired on the video.
You don't need to add extras on the Memphis police officers who displayed poor conduct and potentially their actions led to the death of a person. You don't have to put extras on it. Let me start from the police chief. You don't have, and I said this 100 times already, what is the point of you attempting to make the case against your officers? The ones who are doing this conduct under your watch. How are you going to criticize these guys before you release the body-worn camera? You say it's worse than Rodney King. You are interjecting your own theology into this before the public ever has an opportunity to watch it. She's going on television, doing interviews. I mean, what, are you a celebrity?
And then when you saw it, what was your reaction?
I was outraged. It was incomprehensible to me. It was that bad.
What are we going to see then?
You're going to see acts that defy humanity. You're going to see a disregard for life, duty of care that we're all sworn to, and a level of physical interaction that is above and beyond what is required in law enforcement. And I'm sure that, you know, as I said before, that individuals watching will feel what the family felt. And if you don't, then you're not a human being.
All of a sudden, you on every news station giving an explanation before you even show anybody what actually happened. To brief people with this expectation that it was bad. I expected the video to be much worse than it was, given what she was saying. But then they do this to politicize it. She wants to make it seem really bad and egregious and separate her leadership from the action of these officers. When you have officers participating like this in a unit that's questionable under your watch, you have to resign as a chief. But no, you can't have a simple statement like that because it's politicized. The politicizing of this, politicization, I'm saying the word wrong. You know what I'm saying. Once you get to that point, the truth is out of the window and we can never learn from any of this. The chief went up and beyond to do what she did. They've disbanded the Scorpion unit, why would you disband the Scorpion unit? Why? Now, is the unit the problem or are these 5 officers that are in the unit the problem? You tell me. If you got to disband a unit because of the actions of only 5 officers, then that means the unit should have never been there in the first place. And I got my thoughts on that anyway, but we'll talk about that in a second. I want to just walk you through the timeline real quick of the traffic stop and subsequently this kid's death. So at 8:24, officers confronted Tyree Nichols at a traffic stop. And this is what bothers me the most because people cannot be honest about anything. But I'm going to be honest. Just stay tuned. They stop him on a traffic stop. And the officers alleged that he was driving reckless. That's why they stopped him. However, their police chief gets on television on NBC and say the department have not been able to confirm why Mr. Nichols had been stopped. What do you mean you haven't confirmed? The officers, you think they just stopped him just because they were driving down the street and they picked that man out of all the other black men they could have stopped? Of course, they had a reason for the stop. They articulated that they had a reason for the stop, and you have no reason to believe that they didn't have a reason for the stop. But, of course, she's in the political realm of coming against her own officers. The first struggle occurred between Mr. Nichols, and then he fled. I don't know how many times I have to say this, but why are you resisting arrest? The officers can be wrong, indeed, but you wrong. You created this situation, and they finished the situation, and then they probably going to go to jail. But you created the situation. There's nobody whatsoever on planet Earth that could tell me that his actions did not lead to his death. All you got to do is comply. Show me a man who died who was complying. Show me, please. Find me a clip. Even when the officers were wrong, these people are not complying. And what's happening is that the situation begins to escalate and the good or the bad comes out of those officers. And you dead either way it go. But anyway, he flees. He resists. They get him on the ground. He says, I'm on the ground. Y'all doing too much right now. That's not the conversation you need to have with police officers who have their guns out and tasers out. Is that I'm on the ground. Y'all doing too much right now. You should obey what they're saying to you. If they tell you to get on the ground, it's so much stuff I want to talk about. They had made reference that they gave him a contradictory commands. It's like when they tell you to get on the ground, they don't just want your shin bone to be on the ground. This is not Monday Night Football. You're not down just because you got 2 toes on the ground while you're making a catch. It's that they're telling you to get down, and they're also telling you to put your hands behind your back, and they're trying to put your hands behind your back. Anybody with common sense knows that just because they say get on the ground, it's not just, they mean touch your leg on the ground and that's it. It's the only command you have to deal with. If they're telling you get on the ground and they're trying to put your hands behind your back, everybody and their mama have watched Cops before. You know what's happening. They're not getting you out of the car to rub your back and read you a lullaby. They're trying to arrest you. Whether they're wrong or not, you know what they're trying to do. So it makes me upset when somebody say, oh, but he was listening. He wasn't listening to nothing they was saying. He laying on the ground still being defiant. They attempted to tase him. He gets up. He throws the probes off. That's why I never use the taser. It's ineffective. And he begins to run. They call for backup. The officers catch him up under the streetlights. And they give him that work. Mr. Nichols was handcuffed and then eventually set up on the side of a car, and the medical staff took about 16 minutes before they came and saw him. He was transported to the hospital, and several days later, he died. I don't understand why we can't compartmentalize and criticize all the way across the board. The chief, wrong. She needs to resign. The behavior of these police officers were wrong. Many of them were dead wrong. You can't punch a man in the face like that. This is not a street fight. You should be trying to execute an arrest. Now, some of them complained that he was extra strong, which we probably later find out that he was probably high on some drugs. But at the same time, your mission as a police officer is to overcome resistance by using the least amount of force necessary to execute an arrest. Kicking a man in the face while you're on the ground is not an arrest tactic. That's not, how are you arresting somebody kicking them in the face? How are you arresting somebody hitting them with a baton with no aim, with no purpose, with no follow-up? How are you executing an arrest and you punching the guy in the face, attempting to knock him out, but you couldn't knock him out the first 5 punches? It had to be the 6th punch that you finally hit him in the chin and knocked him on the ground. None of those things are reasonable. So you could criticize those officers on their behavior. Also, when cops pull you over and pull a gun out and say police, and they say get on the ground, you need to get on the ground. You don't get on the ground with guys with guns and negotiate with them and say, I don't know what y'all doing. Why y'all doing this to me? I didn't do nothing. That is not reasonable. And then when they're trying to arrest you, you fight, you resist. They tase you, you run. You flee. You're running down the street now. Now when they get to you, you still don't comply. You're not putting your hands behind your back, even when the guy kick you. You're not putting your hands behind your back. You're not doing anything they ask you to do. You're steady resisting. Then they pepper spray you and you still resisting. It doesn't matter if you can see or not. You hear them saying, put your hands behind your back. They're actively trying to put your hands behind your back. All that he did was absolutely unnecessary. And so all 3 parties can be wrong, because you have to be able to identify 3 separate parties being wrong so you can fix it. What should the chief have done to be better? Boom. As a chief, you don't come out and throw your people under the bus. You don't come out and divulge information. You're supposed to be impartial. The only conversation you should be having is direct conversation of facts, and facts that led to the firing of these officers, because police chiefs don't charge anybody. The police chief really shouldn't have any information into the ongoing investigation, because the prosecutor is handling the investigation into these police officers, not the police chief. She may too be under investigation to some degree because of some of the things that she's done based on the department policy. So nobody want to hear you say what you think, or what you thought it would felt like, what it make you feel like when you feel like you want to feel like. Nobody care what you have to say. You should be impartial, and you should just give factual information about why they got fired. And this is what bothers me, because everybody jumps on a bandwagon of political correctness, and they jump on a bandwagon of making this about politics and trying to save their careers and kissing the rear end of the city council. That stuff is never going to get us anywhere, because when you just go off and you say, they just crazy, I can't believe what I saw. Well, let's talk about the training that they got. While you out here doing press conferences, what training are you giving your officers? Why did you start a Scorpion unit? What training did those officers receive in the Scorpion unit to be qualified to do the things that they did? Now I want to hear you interview about that, because you can go off all day and throw the blame under these officers, whether they acted inappropriately or not. But what is your training protocol? Can you spend a little time talking to Don Lemon about your training protocol? I have never seen such poor training handed to police officers in my life. This was some of the poorest trained police response that I've ever seen. But she's going around touting and gloating about, they just did so bad. You got to be worse. There's no way I would be a police chief of a department and I'm not knowing how my people are being trained. Oh, you're going to develop a Scorpion unit. Okay, what's the criteria for a Scorpion unit? What officers are going to be involved in a Scorpion unit? What background checks or internal checks are you doing to make sure that they're qualified officers to handle incidents like this? How much time do they have on the police department? How much additional training? Do they have use of force training or adequate use of force training? Do they have de-escalation training? Are they good at defensive tactics? Do they have firearms training that they're adequate enough to be on an elite team like this? I'm hoping that this is an elite team. Unless they got random people out there call a Scorpion unit to handle high crime areas. You have to be an elite team if you're handling high crime areas. Ma'am, are these people not qualified to be in a unit you created that then you end up getting rid of because of political reasons? We need to touch base on all this. Now, people with the P brain cannot compartmentalize this, and they just only want to talk about the fact these officers kill people. I get it. But we need to go down methodically and say, how do we fix this for the future? How do we make sure officers never end up in this situation again? How do we make sure a citizen never end up in this situation again? And you can't talk about that if you don't say nothing about the man's behavior. Because essentially what you're saying is that, no, black man, you're not smart like the white man. You don't have to follow instructions from police officers. That's what I feel like that they're saying. Why can't black people follow instructions like everybody else? And I'm not saying they do or don't. I'm saying the expectation is that they don't have to. There's no criticism of any of these black people that have died at the hands of police officers that could have been avoided by their own actions. Even George Floyd. Listen, Floyd, you don't end up under somebody's kneecap if you're not trying to buy stuff with fake money. And then when they get you into custody, you just get in the car. You arrested, you're sitting on the curb. Why don't you just get in the car and go to jail like you've done 15 times before this? Now I'm being superfluous. I don't think he went to jail 15, but he probably went to jail 5. So why can't we talk about the fact of, hey, if you want to stay alive, then don't do what they did. Because your life shouldn't be in the balance of whether it's a good police officer or not. Your life should be in the balance of whether or not you put yourself in a situation to allow them to hurt you or not. And we can deal with the police officers on the other end of it. But what about your life? What are you telling our young people? You should be able to run because you're scared. That's not reasonable. I would never tell my son, hey, if you get pulled over by a cop and you get scared, take off running. You have a right to run. I tell my son, no, man. You don't know what they think you did. Because I'll say this again, because I said it on my live stream video. An officer can have probable cause to arrest you for a crime you didn't do. An officer can have reasonable suspicion to believe you committed a crime that you never did. And they can legally arrest you for a crime that you didn't do. Now, let me explain that. Because whether you did the crime or not is battled in the court of law. Officers base arrest on probable cause. They don't have to know for a fact you did a crime. It's just that a reasonable person with all of the circumstances surrounding the investigation would believe that you committed that crime. Or reasonable suspicion, which is not the same burden as probable cause. Reasonable suspicion can detain somebody. Probable cause is where you can arrest somebody. But reasonable suspicion, you could have not did anything. And the officer could have reasonable suspicion to believe you did it. How is that possible, Mr. Tatum? If a man wearing a black hoodie with a Donald Trump on it, with a blue blazer, black jeans and black shoes, beat up his wife and is running down the street and they see me, they could potentially believe I'm the person that they're looking for and they have a right to detain me. I ran out of time again. I'll catch you after the break.